Hey, this is Stacy. Welcome back to the Soul Pod. This video is for anyone going through a spiritual awakening, especially if you're right in that beginning part. You may not even know you are, so hang tight. This may be a fit. This video is going to be about why it's important, not just important, but really vital that you go a little nuts when you're going through a spiritual awakening. I mean, be outrageous, be out there, just get outside of your normal self and just go wild. And I'll explain why. Marcel Proust said the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. In having new eyes. And that's what's happening when we're going through a spiritual awakening, where we're learning to use new eyes. Technically, that's not correct because they're really our old eyes. And the eyes we've been using are the eyes that have been conditioned by our environment, by our upbringing, by society, by our experiences in life, the eyes that we've adjusted to be what we think they're supposed to be. But when we get back to the old eyes, or as Proust said, new eyes, what we're doing is we're learning to see the world differently. And when we're going through a spiritual awakening, that happens by us breaking out of the old mold. Now, the only way when you think of the word break, the only way you can break anything is by doing a little bit of damage, shaking it up, right? So that's what I'm talking about. We've got to shake it up. We got to get outrageous. We got to get outside of this thing that we're normal. We're feeling normal in for most of our lives, but we're no longer happy with. As when spiritual awakenings happen, we know we're breaking out of it, right? So here you are. You're in this moment of shift. The only way to really shift is to break that force that's holding us where we're at. And when we do that and we allow ourselves permission to just go crazy, just go wild, to not put limits on ourselves, what happens is this: we go from this end over here where this tension has been pulling us to, and when we break loose, we swing way over to here. And we may do some outrageous things, we may experience some outrageous things, we may wear some outrageous things, but what's happening is we're getting as far as we can from what it was before, which is the normal process here. And what happens is when you allow yourself to go crazy over there, this eventually swings back. And what you find is your new normal. You're no longer stuck in this thing that you had to force yourself to break out of. So it's important to get here so that you can kind of find that stasis that is the space where you are more happy. Let me give you some examples of some of the things that I went through when I was going through my spiritual awakening. I ended up going to a lot of what I would back then think of as very touchy feely kind of workshops, which were way outside of my normal, what was comfortable for me. And I did things like stare into a total stranger's eyes for 2 minutes without saying a word, just experiencing this human through their eyes. I'd never done that before. Not a total stranger. I mean, that would be uncomfortable to a certain extent, even with a close friend back then. Not now. But that was one of the instructions we were given: sit across from this person and just stare into each other's eyes for 2 minutes without words. And then we would each take 2 minutes to say whatever answer, whatever prompt we were given, to talk about ourselves, which is another uncomfortable thing for a lot of us. And then you would hold space for 2 minutes, and then they would hold space for 2 minutes. And this was wild for me. It may not be wild for you. Like all of us have our different things that are uncomfortable and outrageous and outside of our comfort zone. This was one of those things. Another thing we did was mirror work, where the instructor at some level in this thing gave us a mirror and said, now sit with yourself and, repeat to yourself the opposite of the judgments that you have. We'd written down some judgments we have about ourselves, each of us in this workshop. And I had to tell myself the opposite of this judgment, you know, um, and I can't think of anything specifically now, but I know they were incredibly uncomfortable. The things that I wrote about myself, these judgments I had about myself. So instead, to now get inside my own eyes with a mirror and talk to the person in the mirror, which we frequently don't. We often look at this thing that we have when we're getting dressed. And we're like, oh, this body of mine looks great. But when you get to the person inside, to the soul behind the eyes, that's a different journey. And it is a confrontation of yourself. Now, this is outrageous, and the reason I mention these things is because for me they were out there, they were wild, they were wacky, and that I had been to Burning Man once before, years before, and then after my spiritual awakening, a friend invited me, and I went again, and I went for 3 or 4 years in a row, and I just went. I just had permission to just go crazy. The one thing about Burning Man that I find most amazing is that it gives your inner child permission to play. It is like a giant playground for adults where you just can go as outrageous as you want without judgment. So I was wearing all kinds of wild stuff, and by the time it was over, I owned a purple top hat with a pair or with a giant feather in it from a peacock. You know, like just, I would never own that. Why would I need a purple hat with a peacock feather? That's bizarre, right? No, I love it. It's now it's a decoration in my house. But it's a memory of me giving myself permission to just be outrageous, right? So the reason I tell you all these stories is because you need to keep your eyes open and for opportunities to get outside of your comfort zone, to just go wild, to say yes a lot to things that you would normally not say yes to. Because I guarantee you, if you're going through a spiritual awakening, you're suddenly going to notice opportunities landing in your lap, opportunities to say yes, invitations to say yes to things you normally would not say yes to. And if they're a little uncomfortable, but they're not a hell no, say yes to them. Say yes. Try something different, do something different, experience something different, wear something different. If it's not a hell no, say yes, and you won't regret it. Because what you're doing is you're taking that, you're breaking it free, and you're swinging it way over here so you can figure out where you want to be. And when you get there, you're going to be a lot more happy. Because what's happening is you're jailbreaking your inner child. You're jailbreaking the part of yourself that hasn't been allowed to be true, because you're trying to fit into whatever it is you're trying to fit into, that thing you're breaking out of now. You feel me? I know you do. Socrates said, to find yourself, think for yourself. To find yourself, think for yourself. 3,000 years ago, Socrates said this, and it's still true. What does it mean? Well, for the longest time, we've been told how to think. Society, our parents, conditioning, television, pop culture has told us how we're supposed to think. But to find yourself, think for yourself. Sometimes you have to break free. Most of the time, you have to break free of this thing where we've been conditioned to find ourselves. You have to break free to find yourself, to get back to your voice. It may not feel like it now, but the voice we're speaking from before we break free is not our voice. It's the voice we've been conditioned to use. The one that we've been told, a lot of women are told, be quiet, be ladylike, stand over there and don't make a fuss. That's one example. Is that your voice? Probably not. You're probably holding your voice back to do the thing you're told to do. Men are the same. We all have our conditioning and our messages of the ways we're told to be. I don't mean literally our voice in all cases. Our voice itself also is our personality, the way we present ourselves in the world. Maybe that's how Socrates meant it. Maybe it wasn't, but that's my interpretation. So give yourself permission to find your voice. Give yourself permission to let your inner child come out and frolic, go crazy, ape shit, bounce off the walls, figure out what it is your inner child wants to do. It may take weeks, it may take months, it may take years, but you'll find that space somewhere in the middle where your happy space is. That's why it's okay to go completely ape shit when you're going through a spiritual awakening. Get out there and do it. Say yes today to something that makes you uncomfortable, as long as it's not risking being fatal. Thanks for being here. Thanks for enjoying my channel. Please leave me a comment in the section below here in the notes. If you have an idea of how you might go ape shit, or some of the things you may say yes to, or for that matter, for those of you who have said yes during a spiritual awakening to crazy things that you didn't think you would. It's kind of freeing to write it down for some reason. So write it down. Tell us about your journey. If you haven't checked out the Soul Podcast yet, check it out. I know you'll like it. Season 4 is kicking off really great. Got some great content coming towards you. And I'm setting up some interviews that I think are going to be pretty wild and surprise a lot of people. I'm asking for interviews from people that I didn't think I could get interviews from, and I think I'm getting some. So I'll see you soon on the Soul Podcast. If not, subscribe, and I'll see you back here the next time the next video pops.